I'm just like sitting in this chair a lot. Sit down video central. Don't worry, a vlog will be coming next, hopefully if I film one. Welcome to May. It's time for a wrap up of April. I'm Melissa, I write books, and the monthly wrap ups we talk about reading, writing, updates, and then any life updates. This month is a little weird because I feel like you've seen everything because I was doing semi-regular content. Let's actually see how many videos I ended up doing in April, because I ended up doing 16 videos if we count the live in April for Camp NaNoWriMo, sort of. I kind of abandoned my goals because I think at the beginning of the month I was saying that I would try to have a specific word count goal for each week after the first week, but I just didn't really do that. But I have been writing pretty consistently. I guess we're in the writing updates, so welcome to that, writing updates. The first week, that seems like so long ago that I was prepping for that conference. The next 3 weeks of April, I ended up getting through about, I think, 25,000 words of Gas Station, which is, I'll take that. And I was sick for one of the weeks. I have started querying in April for the wedding season. I've got a couple of responses. Nothing too big there. The only big querying news is from the conference, which I feel like I outlined pretty well. I haven't heard back from either of those agents yet, which is pretty normal. They give you like 90 days that they'll be back to you within. That's the update on writing. If you want to know more about that, just watch the last, 15 videos. Let's talk about reading, because I actually had one of my best reading months all year. And I think I'll wrap up the last 2 months because I don't think I wrapped up my reading for March. I think the first books I read in March were The Stolen Heir and The Prisoner's Throne by Holly Black, which are, it's a duology that is in the world of The Cruel Prince. So I would read the Cruel Prince trilogy first. I really did enjoy that duology. It was one of the first books I read in a while, that like new books. I've been rereading a lot of books, but nothing new until those two for about a month. And I think that kind of helped get me out of a reading slump. I really did like it. I never love Holly Black stuff. I don't typically go back and reread those books, but I really do enjoy them on the first read just because they're more political, not in terms of our politics, but fantasy politics. And it's less focused on the romance, but there still is good romance in it. It's just not very rereadable friendly, if that makes sense. There are some book series where they're very reread friendly, where you can go in and read a chapter and you don't really need all the context to feel the emotion of the scene. Whereas the reason that the emotion hit so hard in The Stolen Heir and The Prisoner's Throne is because of all the context. So you kind of need to read the whole thing to get the same feeling. Nothing wrong with that. I think that's actually really good. But that's my thoughts on that. I think I rated them pretty highly. I did enjoy them. And then I read Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows, which I really did enjoy. I enjoyed Divine Rivals much more than Ruthless Vows, which I think is a pretty common opinion. The romance in Divine Rivals is stunning and gorgeous, and I love it. This was the first book this year. Well, actually. This was the first book this year that really, I couldn't put the book down. It turned into a goblin book where I ignored everything around me until I finished that book. And then Ruthless Vows, it just was much more on the on the world building fantasy stuff than the first book. And I think that nobody really read, or maybe some people did. I didn't really read Divine Rivals for the magic. I read it for the magic of the characters and the romance. And it was in there. It was just really heavily covered with fantasy politics, which is fine. And then I read Finlay Donovan Rolls the Dice, which I believe is the 4th book in the Finlay Donovan series. Oh, should I be telling you what these books are about? Divine Rivals is fantasy, but it's kind of historical fiction fantasy, but it's not really based. It's I would say loosely, very loosely, it had World War I energy. I don't know if that's correct. Comment down below. But there's magical typewriters and love and journalists. It's just fun. And I can't tell you anything about The Stolen Heir because it spoils The Cruel Prince. So then Finlay Donovan, this series is about, it's a cozy mystery series. about an author who gets caught up in all these crimes. And it was like a road trip kind of a mystery, which are not my favorite. Honestly, I struggled to get through it. It's because it's falling into the cozy trap for me, which a lot of people like this about cozy mysteries. It's becoming very episodic, which is fine, but like the stakes are not high enough for me. Like nobody's getting kidnapped. Nobody's ever in like that much real, it doesn't feel like they're in very real danger. Even though like technically they are. I still enjoyed it. I'll keep reading the series, but. And then I read A Grave Robbery by Deanna Raybourn, which is part of the Veronica Speedwell series, which everyone needs to read. Thank you. It's like a historical, cozy mystery series. I wouldn't really say it's cozy though. There are real stakes in every one of those books. It's very, like each book there's a new mystery, but it does a really good job of tying in like the characters into the central conflict and having real stakes. And it's like historical, it's in like the 1800s, I believe. It's book 9. And so, you know, it's hard to not repeat things in 9 books. So some could argue it's getting a little repetitive, but not to the extent where I'll stop reading. Okay, the next book I read, top of the year for sure, was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. It's a new release. I listened to the audiobook in one day. It's stunning and gorgeous. It's about a traveling nurse. And, oh no, here's what the premise is. I always forget what the actual premise is. It's 2 people who, like, everyone that they date, the next person that, like, once they break up, that person finds their true love, and both of them have this, and then they're like, let's date each other so that the next person we both find, we'll break the curse, whatever. No, but it's not really about that. Like, that's just the setup that gets you into the book. In my opinion, it's so good. I don't even have words for it. It had everything I liked in it, and it has real conflict and real world, like, tension, and she did really good research for this book, and I loved it. So read that. Then we have The Reappearance of Rachel Price, which is by Holly Jackson, who wrote The Good Girl's Guide to Murder, 5 Survive, all that stuff. And it's about this girl whose mother went missing when she was a girl, and then comes back, shows up 20 years later, something like that, 18 years later, 16, it's 16 years later, 15. And they're filming a documentary about her before she shows up. That book was really good also. Holly Jackson just knows how to write a good thriller. Highly recommend that one as well. And then I read The Blonde Identity by Ally Carter, which is a thriller. I don't know how to classify it. It has a cartoon cover. Girl wakes up, has no memory, but she's in Paris and people are shooting at her. And then there's this guy who's there who's like a spy. It's great. It's very silly. It's very fun. It's very like, it's almost a little episodic. I don't know. I didn't read it all in one sitting. It was like, the stakes were high, but also it was fun. Like they're like throwing banter back and forth and like doing ridiculous things and jumping out of cars. Like it's very like fun spy book. Yeah, it was good. And then I read Happiness for Beginners by Catherine Center. I feel like I talked about this book in depth in one of my more recent videos, but very good. It's like women's fiction. It's this woman who's like 32, recently divorced, and goes on this wilderness adventure with her brother's best friend who's 10 years younger than her, and finds the meaning of herself and happiness. I finally finished House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas. Do I have to talk about it? I've been reading this book since it came out. I read 70% of it on the day it came out. And then I've been slogging my way through it. It's the 3rd book of the Crescent City series. There were a lot of things I liked. There's a lot of things I'm annoyed about. I think it was a good book. I think that there are too high of expectations on this series and on Sarah J. Maas generally, so I don't blame her for this. I just think there might have been a disconnect as to what people are reading her books for. That's how I feel about that book, because she really leaned into a lot of things that I don't think people really care about that much, and left the things that people love her for out. Like, people are reading Sarah J for the characters and for the romance and for like the tenderness between the characters, and like with a good plot woven in, absolutely. But I think we fell off somewhere in the editing of this book, she forgot that people liked the main couple and what people liked about the main couple. We forgot why people read this book in the first place. And it also felt weirdly like a setup book for a third book in a series, final book in a series. Well, who knows? But it felt like it was setting up for a bunch of things that no one cared about. But even so, I think it went over a lot of people's heads. Like I'm talking like chapters and chapters of some random story about someone when we've never even met. Sure, but in the point that it was placed in the plot, nobody was paying attention to that. I'm so sorry, Sarah. That's my thoughts on House of Flame and Shadow. It was fine. I needed there to be better reunions in this book all around. That's all I have to say. Then I read, do I want to admit that I read this? Okay, don't read this book. Or do, if you are related to me or you know me in real life, do not read this book. I do not recommend this book. Hear me loud and clear. If you love dark romance and like dark romance, then maybe give it a shot. You've probably already read it. It's called Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. I don't know why I read this book. Okay, listen, here's the thing about kidnapping mafia books. It's not a kidnapping mafia book, or like kidnapping books. It's such a mixed bag because sometimes kidnapping books are like, oh, like you have someone searching for you on the outside and it's like this beautiful romance and rescue book. Sometimes it goes, what if human trafficking was cute? That's also not what this book is, but it's somewhere in between that. So, okay. Also, this book is at Target. Do not buy this book at Target, or do if you were an adult. If you are a child or you see a child or anyone who might be a child going for this book because it looks cute, it's like a locket on the cup. No, okay. Let me just tell you, okay? If you really don't want to know what happens in this book, skip ahead. I'm gonna try to keep it PG, but it's pretty impossible. So this girl, this woman, she's like 28. Does not matter. She's for some reason in a car with her sister's fiance. Her sister's fiance. Let me say it louder for people in the back. Her sister's fiance. They're like, it's very innocent. They're just driving around, like he's picking her up from a bar. I don't know. They get kidnapped by a serial killer. Page 2, right? End up in the serial killer's basement. A lot of things that you would be afraid of happening in a serial killer's basement. You know what I mean? This is dark, very graphic, very on the page, multiple times, often, okay? That happens with like the serial killer, does all the bad things. Oh, it's disgusting. And it's like watching a car crash. Like I'm like, it has to get better. Like she has to get out. Then, I can't even like say this on the internet. The serial killer, to make things worse, the serial killer makes them do the same thing. Do it. You know what I'm saying? Her sister's fiance. And I'm like, okay, that's horrible. Then they fall in love. Nope. Then they get out halfway through the book. They're like, kill the guy, whatever. And then they're like, trying to hide their love. And I'm like, okay. Anyway, that's what that book is about. Do not read this book. Thank you. Especially if you're related to me. I cannot. Then, okay. This is gonna sound ridiculous after what I've just told you. The author has written 2 like connected books, and I also read those. It was like a car crash. I couldn't stop reading. One of them is called Lotus, but that one is like super unrelated. That one, in the first book, they mention like, oh, there was someone who was kidnapped for 20 years across the country, and it follows that guy. That one is not as like, whoa, what are we doing? Stop that. It's more like he was kidnapped by this crazy guy who was like, who told him that the world was radioactive for a bunch of years, whatever. So he was kidnapped for like 20 years, and then when he gets out, obviously he doesn't know what's going on, and his best friend from childhood is his neighbor, and they have a romance. And I'm like, okay, that was kind of sweet. Still a lot. And then there was another book by her following this other victim of the first serial killer. her and the guy who'd been kidnapped in the second book's brother. It doesn't matter. I also read those. It is a moment of shame for me, but I had to count them in my Goodreads because I read the whole thing. So that is the reading update for this month. In terms of reading, don't judge me too harshly. Okay, then life. I was mostly just writing in April and work and doing my job. And I've been running. I'm sure you've noticed I've been running. I'm doing a 5K at the end of the month, at the end of May. Oh my gosh, that's this month. Hello. I think it's actually June 1st. So it's not this month, it's next month. And the other day, I ran 3 5-minute chunks in a row and I could have gone more. I know. Because the first time I had to run for 5 minutes in a row, I literally felt like I was gonna die. Everyone, you should stretch before you run. I thought that was just like something that doctor said just to be cool. No, if you stretch before and after you run, it actually helps and makes running a lot easier. So highly recommend stretching generally. That's my biggest life update, I think. Also, there's construction all around me all the time, but that's not news to you if you've been watching any of my recent content, it's fine. For content schedule for May and going forward, I'm trying to figure it out, you guys. Because here's the thing. Posting that consistently, like every 2 days it was like every 2 or 3 days. It actually was a similar amount of work because here's the thing. I film the same amount pretty much regardless of how often I post. So when I would do weekly vlogs, it would take me so long to edit because I had so much footage from the whole week. But when I'm doing it every couple of days, it doesn't take me as long to edit it, and it actually makes me actually write throughout the whole week. Because when I'm doing weekly vlogs, I can just not write for 3 days and still have a complete vlog. And I really have liked the pace that I've been writing at. So I don't really know. Like, I feel like 3 videos a week is not unmanageable. May is, specifically this week, is very busy. I work at a college, so it's the end of the year. All that stuff is wrapping up. So these next couple weeks, it might be a little bit slower. I'll try to keep you updated about that, but I would say probably expect like 2 to 3 videos a week just regularly because it truly was not a lot of work for me. And I know that that's very rare and maybe I should be spending more time on editing, but I don't. Do you guys want fancier editing or cleaner editing? I have to say my 1K Q&A, I probably could have watched through that one more time if I'm honest with myself and cleaned it up a little bit, but it truly does not take me very long because I have a background in like speed editing videos. That being said, the next week might be a little slower, the next couple weeks might be a little slower, but then I'll try to go for 2 to 3 a week. So that's kind of what you can expect. I don't know. And my goals for May, I'd like to maintain this balance that I feel like I've really found in the last week of writing and also reading and also being outside and doing things and not having every second revolve around writing, because it was for a while there, which I liked. I liked being in that deadline zone. That being said, I would like to finish this draft of the book, if not by the end of May, like halfway through June. That's kind of my plan. So let me know how your month was. Did you read anything good? How's the writing? Did you do camp? How did camp go? All the things. Do you want live streams? Let me know. I'll see you at this point probably on Sunday. Okay, bye.